Hello and welcome to Let's Be Honest. I'm your host, Johnda, and tonight we're just going to jump right into it because you've seen the title. Sha'Carri goes to jail, and you will too. So this is a story that came up because, as many of you have seen with the video, Sha'Carri Richardson has found herself in a situation where she ended up in jail for the second time in what, 7 months? The last time was in July of 2025 when there was the sort of maybe kind of not altercation between she and her fellow Olympian boyfriend Christian in the SeaTac airport. Thankfully for her, the charges were ultimately dropped, but this time, probably not so much. And that's what we're going to talk about. So, as I've said, unless you've been living under a rock, you have probably seen the video, the very goofy video of Sha'Carri Richardson being arrested by Highway Patrol in Orange County, Florida. And that body cam, well, let's just say it wasn't as bad as Karen Huger from the Real Housewives of Potomac, but it wasn't good. From the goofy look on her face when the officer came to the car and told her to wipe the smile off her face, to the constant begging that she did when it was clear that he wasn't interested in any excuses. So you're going to see me looking down a little bit. For those who are watching, those who are on the podcast, you won't care. But because I'm making sure that this is shared on a couple of my other platforms. And also, I took notes. I had court today. And while waiting for my case to be called, I took notes for all of you because one of the things that I have done for many years is deal with criminal defense. And in doing that, I have certainly had countless traffic cases, especially serious traffic cases like the kind we're going to talk about today, DUIs, all of those things. And we're also going to talk about why these cases are considered serious. Because people are like, oh, it's just driving behavior. Yeah, it's driving behavior, but it's a lot deeper than just driving behavior. So let's jump right into it, shall we? All right. So last Thursday, I believe it was, on January 29th, Sha'Carri Richardson, Olympian, ironically, especially given what she's charged with, one of the fastest women in the world, probably if you would ask her, she would say the fastest woman in the world, was arrested, and in grand fashion for all the world to see because of a body cam. Because of body cam footage that was released within mere days of this arrest. Honestly, I think it was practically the next day. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it first in terms of what she's charged with and why. We'll get into the stop. And then we're going to talk about why this could happen to you, because this video is not so much about Sha'Carri. Yeah, that's the anecdotal incident that brought us here. But I like to educate the people that I spend my time with, and I spend my time with you all via YouTube and on the podcast. And we're going to talk about why this is an issue. This has nothing to do with her being famous. This has nothing to do with all the folks. Well, the video getting out absolutely has to do with her being famous. Nobody would care about the body cam of me and probably most of you. But it is important that we talk about this because this situation could literally happen to any of us. So again, I am just letting people know that I am live right now. So that's why I'm looking down. Okay, so let's jump in. Now, Sha'Carri was pulled over on the highway in Florida, and according to the officer, she was going 104 miles per hour in a 65-mile-per-hour zone. So she was damn near 50 miles over the speed limit. And we're going to talk in a few seconds about why that's significant. The officer pulled her over. He said that she was not only just speeding, but as is often in these cases, because how are you keeping control of your vehicle? She is exhibiting erratic driving behavior in it. And if everybody's not going 100, that means you're going around people. You're potentially cutting other people off. It is a hot mess. I mean, and the officer even said at one point, she even blew by him. He was one of the people that she cut off and drove around like, you're driving 104. I don't think it's being in politically correct to say that you were, well, driving like a lunatic. So let's get to it. Florida is among many states that has very strict laws, and theirs is called the super speeder law. But I'm here in the DMV, also DC, Maryland, Virginia, particularly in Northern Virginia, so right outside of Washington, DC. And we have some really strict laws as well. They just don't all have cute names like the super speeder law. So Florida's, like several others, including the state that I'm in, makes this a misdemeanor. And Florida is a class 1 misdemeanor because you are going either one of two things: 50 miles over the speed limit or anything over 100, because why would there be a reason for anybody to do that, right? So I'm going to read to you the specifics from Florida. It's illegal to drive 50 miles per hour over the speed limit or 100 or better. We talked about that. Your first conviction of it could still land you up to 30 days in jail or a $500 fine. Could even be both. Now, a second or subsequent conviction could get you 90 days or $100 fine, either, both. And in that instance, you could also lose your driver's license for up to 180 days. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you are going over 100, when people come to see me and they tell me that, I let them know right out the gate, we're going to be fighting. And what are we going to be fighting about? If it can be proven that you were doing that, we are going to be fighting about keeping you out of jail, even if it's a day or two. We're going to be fighting about whether or not your license is suspended. And we are going to be fighting, well, not really, about whether or not you have an incredibly high fine. Hi, for those in the comments. Yes, absolutely fighting jail time. So now I say a little less of a fight about the high fine, because let's face it, a high fine is what may buy your way out of jail. And I don't mean about like a bribe. In fact, I can take the example, and he won't mind me mentioning it. I have a much older cousin. And I'm saying much older, although he's not terribly honest about his age. I would venture to say he is probably in his early 80s, which begs the question, especially given his driving behavior, why are you still driving? He just happened to be in my state, although nowhere near me. He was in some podunk town in the hills of the hills, and he decided to take his brand new 2025 Ford F-150 out. I guess he doesn't live here, so he was on his way home to wherever. Homeboy got busted driving 102 in a 65. So this case has been pending for the longest because, like a lot of people his age, he's been ill. He's been going through a whole lot of things. So, of course, he hired counsel. The court will always say, you're facing jail time, you need to hire counsel. So he did hire an attorney. And I have to tell you that between the phone calls that I made back and forth talking to that attorney, as well as the attorney's own efforts. The only thing that kept him out of jail, exactly, Monet, he was moving. The only thing that kept him out of jail, in my opinion, especially given where he was, because folks, we still have to be mindful of where you are when you commit certain crimes, when you look like you and everybody else doesn't. The law is the law, but bias is bias. Well, I think the only thing that helped him is his age. The fact that he couldn't be there and his attorney just kept going back. He's sick. He can't come until the next time. He can't come until the next time. His license is probably still going to be suspended because he's not going to be able to afford it. But do you know what the fine was that the judge was finally willing to concede to, because it was just going to keep going on with him not coming to court? $1,000. $1,000. And again, he was in the boonies. It took me forever to even figure out where the hell he was when I was when I was looking it up. I'm gonna have a little drink here. It happens. Live recording, folks. So that is just an example. This is everyday stuff. This super speeder law, again, not about Sha'Carri, it's about everybody. But let's get back into the foolishness of her case. So the officer comes up. She's got this goofy look on her face. I have my suspicions as to why. And I wouldn't be surprised if, in no small part, it could be connected to what her boyfriend was arrested for when he came upon the scene. Didn't have enough sense to stand down, especially considering that he had a glass pipe that is being characterized as paraphernalia on the front seat of his car. Later for that, because we'll talk about why that could get you arrested as well. The officer immediately told her, wipe this goofy smile off your face. You were driving out of control. You were cutting people off. You cut me off. Your speed was dangerous. It was excessive. And as you see, even in my little screen grab, she's begging, she's pleading, please, please, please don't do this. I have a coach nearby. My whole team is nearby. Please, please, please don't do this. That officer was having none of it. And sure, everybody can debate all day long about the fact that she was in Florida, and we know what's up with Florida. She's Black. We know what's up with that, especially being Black, in Florida as a white officer. We get all that. And it is entirely possible, even though she did not say, do you know who I am? It's entirely possible that the officer knew who she was. But at the end of the day, even if you're not Sha'Carri, there are certain things, especially given the way the law is written, there are certain things where you're going to be screwed. Even if the officer did not physically take her, as in put her in his vehicle, take her there and actually place her under arrest, that doesn't mean that these very strict penalties wouldn't be in place. My cousin that I mentioned to you all earlier, the one with the $1,000 fine that was facing jail time because it is a misdemeanor here in Virginia too. My cousin was not placed in handcuffs. He was not arrested and taken. I have many a client who, when charged with aggressive driving or these high order cases, reckless driving is usually how they're charged, reckless or aggressive driving. Are they always arrested? Typically no, unless there's something else accompanying it. Things like perhaps a little something called a DUI, or just really out of control driving behavior, or other things that are discovered on the scene. Often happens. You don't have your driver's license on you. You have a suspended license, those types of things. So we know that everybody doesn't get arrested. And I will grant you all that. But my issue here isn't so much about whether or not she would have gotten arrested because she just happens to be Black, a celebrity, and in Florida. It's about the fact that because of the types of charges and the way that the law has evolved to address these things, that you may not end up in jail that day, but by the time you go to court, you might end up in jail then. And you could get the big fine. You could end up with the $1,000 fine my older cousin got, the one whose Ford F-150. Maybe I should go and get it. But you could also end up in jail. It is just that serious in these streets. And it should be, because 100 miles per hour or 104 miles per hour, that is something to be concerned about. I don't say it should be as in you should go to jail. I'm saying we should be concerned from a safety standpoint. Okay, let's face it. This officer played zero games with her. No matter what she tried to say, no matter what she tried to do, he didn't care. He's like, you're going to jail. It's just a matter of how you want to do it. I'm not letting you call anybody. You could call somebody when you get there. You're going to jail. So now let's talk about Christian, because again, we're not going to beat the dead horse about what happened. You could go and watch the video. I really just wanted to talk to you all about not ending up in this situation. Do not play when it comes to these types of offenses. And if you want to drive, 80, 90, 100 miles per hour, get an attorney when you go to court, because it ain't cute what could possibly happen when you get there. So the boyfriend shows up. So now let's talk a little bit about his charge. So he shows up. He's an Olympian too. His name is Christian Coleman. Now, this just happens to be the same boyfriend that she was arrested with, about however you want to put it, back in July, because of they claim it wasn't an altercation. So we'll say disagreement that looked a little extra aggressive in the airport. So he comes up, he's trying to get all in the mix. The officer's telling him to stand down. This is not something that you want to do. If it bothers you that much, you record your own video. But when you are told to stand down, especially when you are not trying to protect someone's life and limb, he is in the middle of dealing with her, you are likely, and I've seen this happen, and I'm not saying that any of these other instances with the people I've dealt with were really doing anything wrong, and that's why I got them off. But you're still going to go through the drama of it all if you're constantly being told to stand down when the officer is dealing with the other person. So in this particular case, he's telling him back off. He's trying to be engaged in the incident. So ultimately, the officer threatens to arrest him and charge him, which he was. He was charged with resisting. And I think it probably would have been more of an obstruction type thing. And honestly, the way that Florida defines it, because of the incident that was occurring at the time, where I am, he probably would have just been charged with obstruction, essentially getting in the way. And of course, the officer saying that that the individual was interfering with the lawful discharge of their duties. And so, of course, that would be, and intentionally doing so, that would be considered obstruction, at least what most officers consider obstruction, especially when they're trying to do something else, even if they're being total jerks and your intentions are not negative. So, incident to the officer saying, I'm going to get you. Christian's car gets searched. Well, apparently they didn't have to search much. Front seat of the car, they find a glass pipe. So, in addition to being charged with resisting obstruction, which is a misdemeanor there, he was also charged with possession of drug paraphernalia. Now, in Florida, and in this particular instance, it's the same definition where I am. So this is something that you all need to be aware of. What is defined as paraphernalia? Because the definition is pretty wide. I'm going to give you some of the examples, but of course, there could be other things depending on what's attached to it. Because while they don't mention a dollar bill in a little glass mirror, if you have a dollar bill in a little glass mirror and it just happens to have something that looks like a white powdery substance, that could be considered paraphernalia for the purposes of this statute, especially when you take in all of the circumstances around it. Just like in a drug dealing case, there are things that are considered to be indicia of distribution. Some random scales on their own, not a big deal. Some random scales or not so random scales somewhere connected to someone who is suspected of drug distribution, and there are other things around, like maybe some powdery or floury substances, maybe some little baggies and some other stuff, well, then suddenly it is considered to be indicia of distributions. But I digress. Back to the paraphernalia. So it's defined as equipment, products, and materials used or intended to be used with controlled substances. So examples: bongs, pipes, rolling papers. Yes, rolling papers, folks. Rolling papers, scales, needles, spoons. Heard me mention a little bit ago. If you got that dollar bill that just happens to be on that mirror and there's some powdery substance around, yes, you will have potentially an officer, if he is determined to arrest you, that would consider that to be paraphernalia as well. And I know that there may be some hairs going up on some folks' necks because I mentioned bongs and I mentioned rolling papers. But the reality of it is that whether you like it or not, marijuana, whether the use of it, the distribution of it, whatever it is that you're up to, it is not legal in every jurisdiction in the United States. You may feel that it should be, but it is not. Now, in this case, excuse me, they did not make clear what the glass pipe, what they suspect the glass pipe is used for. I'm not going to speculate on that because dealing with drug cases for many years, glass pipes are used for more than just what people will jump to the assumption with, like crack or freebasing or anything like that. It just really doesn't have to be that extreme that you can, well, I won't describe it because I'm not going to be accused of being on the air telling people the many ways and descriptions of how to use a glass pipe. But I will simply say that because of my experience, I'm not going to cast any negative opinions about what it was used for. But I will assume, and I think that may be a fair that I can make a fair assumption that there must have been something in, on, or around it that led the officer to believe that the glass pipe was used for controlled substances, so characterizing it as paraphernalia. That charge, at least in Florida, carries up to a year in jail, up to 1 year probation, $1,000 fine. And of course, because it's a criminal conviction, excuse me, because it's a criminal conviction, it would be on your record. Now, typically, at least in the jurisdictions that I have worked in, does a single person with an item that is considered drug paraphernalia, a bong, which is, the typical one, again, a glass pipe, something like that. Is that typically something, the paraphernalia charge alone, something that they go to jail for? No, absolutely not. If jail becomes an issue or has become an issue with any client that I have ever had in my entire career, which, it's long, uh, it, if jail time was ever at play and paraphernalia just happened to be one of the charges, that was not the charge that they went to jail on. In fact, that was typically the charge that's dropped when we are working on a potential deal for the real charge, especially if it is controlled substances. If it is a controlled substance, a more serious controlled substance, like a Schedule 1, Schedule 2 drug. Um, when it comes to marijuana, again, the landscape is changing when it comes to the laws. Will he end up going to jail for this? Will he end up even with a criminal record for this because he gets convicted of it? Honestly, I doubt it. Because if there was a big pile of whatever the alleged substance was in, around, or on it, he would have been charged with that. And he wasn't. I suspect that this was just a pile on charge because he pissed the officer off and the officer was going to charge him with resisting, and the item just happened to be laying in plain sight. So I suspect that is what will happen there. The charge that they would be more concerned about, if this even goes forward, and again, we're only talking about Christian, if this even goes forward, would probably be the resisting charge. And even that, I think it depends on what his attorney says or does. I think it depends on what kind of compelling argument uh, can be made behind closed doors with the prosecutor about just the heightened concern of the situation. He was there. He saw his girlfriend. She was upset. He was upset. I think there is a much better case to be argued as it relates to him that could probably get this knocked down to a simple disorderly conduct, pay a little fine, slap on the wrist, and walk away. Because let's face it, that's what it was. It is just that when things go on, the officer, it's already a situation. She's not really cooperating. She's getting on she wasn't being a jerk. She wasn't using bad language or whatever, but she was being annoying and whiny, and it was dragging the stop out a little bit longer than it probably needed to be. She's begging and pleading. The officer probably felt like, okay, she is not going to make this easy as far as getting her out of this car, getting her willing to come with me. And now I have this guy coming up and he's making a lot of noise. So I think it was really more the situation. And personally, if I was representing him in particular, we'll get back to her. If I was representing him in particular, I'd be trying to get this all worked out behind closed doors with a little disorderly conduct. Again, you're on the side of the highway. It's just not a good look, and it is a dangerous situation, even with the vehicle stopped and him coming up there and adding to the drama. So I think that's how all of that is going to resolve itself, or rather, it's how it should resolve itself. It's Florida. Take that as you will. It's Florida. As it relates to Sha'Carri, like I said, Sha'Carri goes to jail, which she did. There's a mugshot involved. Will she do additional jail time? It really depends. It really depends. How serious is that issue there? is serious enough that as of July 1st, they enacted this super speedy law. Um, how contrite are her people going to be in going to court? I suspect very, because honestly, other than being annoying and the stop being kind of dragged out, she was contrite at the time. She wasn't a jerk. She wasn't poking out her chest. She wasn't like some of these celebrity stops that you hear about. Don't you know who I am? Whatever. She wasn't a drunk Karen Huger. It was none of that. She seemed to be afraid. And I don't mean, it doesn't seem like she's necessarily afraid for her life. In terms of the officer, afraid of her life for her livelihood. Absolutely. As well she should be. I mean, she's got a lot to lose. And of course, when he started talking about her going to jail, at that point, yes, she may have, and understandably so, been afraid for her life, her actual physical life, as well as her livelihood. So it just snowballed and got even worse. As I was saying to a friend, I have some other suspicions about what was going on with her as well, especially given just the whole goofiness of her demeanor. But I'll keep those I'll keep those to myself. Watch it out there. Watch out there, folks, because this is not a Sha'Carri Richardson thing. This is, like I said, a Sha'Carri goes to jail, and you will too, even if it's just for the arrest, even if it's just overnight. And you could end up with suspended time, even if it's not actual time to serve. You could end up with some suspended time. Then you're on probation and good behavior, and heaven forbid you are to fall off the curb of life and find yourself in an unfortunate situation where you get arrested again. It happens. And then you've got this time hanging over your head, not to mention the insane amount of these fines and potentially losing your license. And unlike certain offenses, interestingly enough, drug offenses, DUI offenses, where you can get potentially, again, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, a restricted license that allows you to go to and from work, to and from childcare, any of those things, the important things of life. And then you just can't drive any other time. When you get your license suspended for these types of things, the court, if your court even allows restricted licenses, even the ones who allow it are not likely to allow it when you have an offense like this. So if you get your license suspended for an offense like this, on top of the fine, on top of the jail time, whether active jail time or just hanging over your head, because usually when if I've had clients that got jail time for this, it's only like 1 or 2 days. But losing your license, as we know, for most people means losing their livelihood. Most of us don't live right around the corner from where we work. So be careful out there, everyone, because it's going down. And you could go down to the jailhouse. So this was just a pop on. Hope you had a little bit of fun. Hope you learned something. And a public service announcement from your girl, Just Johnda. Don't forget, we still have the Blurred Lines True Crimes or True Lies series going on. The Timothy Busfield episode, I expect, will be up probably Thursday, Friday at the absolute latest. We will also be talking about the Don Lemon arrest and the implications of the consolidation of a lot of media assets into the hands of a few, and what that means for everyone. Of course, it heightens the need for independent media like Don Lemon and others, but it also puts people like Don Lemon and others who are doing well in the independent media space and building up huge followings, doing the things that they have been doing for many years, but independently because of the stuff, shall we say, um, it at the mainstream media outlets where many of them used to work, and even more after what happened at the Washington Post today. It still puts them on the chopping block in other ways because it puts people like him in the crosshairs of the oligarchs who are trying to consolidate all of the media assets for singularity and messaging. So we are definitely going to talk about that, and then a lot more great things that are coming up. I hope you are enjoying seeing and hearing from your girl much more often as we continue this new season. Lots and lots of great things coming, and of course, check me out all over YouTube on many other people's shows. I've been having a great time appearing on Shade in the City when we talk about um, our favorite soap, Beyond the Gates. And just last night, as a matter of fact, I was on Really BTV. And of course, there's our boy Braylon Lee. So there's lots of great stuff going on. Even if you don't see me here, you will see me with some other great content creators in other places. In the meantime, I am going to sign off. Please, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, make sure, as you see scrolling across the bottom, you like, you comment, and subscribe. Please consider supporting the show. The links are below in the description box of how you can support the show. It allows me to take the time out to do the research and do all the things that we do, especially on the more serious topics. And of course, make sure that if you are listening to this via podcast, you are liking and subscribing and giving all the stars and all the things depending on the platform. And finally, folks, as I always tell you, if you're thinking about it and you want to talk about it, chances are I'm thinking about it and I want to talk about it too. So let's be honest together. Good night.